So is this Greenborg LLC, Brian Mackenzie?
And Mike here.
Whatever. Fine.
Mike. Brian.
Oh.
Good evening, Ben. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Can you hear us?
I sure can. Hope all's well. Sorry I missed last month's discussion with the mayor. Sounds like it went well.
It was good.
Good. And August, we now have 3 and we're at 6 o'clock.
All right, we'll call this meeting to order. Ben, you want to go over the online and telephone prompts?
Sure thing. So we are live on Zoom and in person. Those who wish to contribute their voice to the meeting, we ask you to get the attention of the chair and wait for your time to talk. In person, it's easy to raise your hand and to be recognized. Online, you can raise your hand using the Zoom functions at the bottom of the screen, or if you're on the phone, you can raise your hand by pressing *9. And then when asked to contribute, you can mute and unmute yourself by pressing *6.
All right. Public comment for items elsewhere not on the agenda. That would be Mary.
Oh, thank you, August. Mary Ricard Stevenson. 2 things. The Lasher sidewalk thing. You know, this has rubbed me the wrong way for a long time. Brian was allowed to build those duplexes, Mackenzie, along Lasher Street, leaving no room for sidewalk on that side, and with driveways that don't bear even, they shouldn't even be named driveways. Because if a truck is parked there, the back end by 2 feet sticks out into the street. And if there's a car, just a medium-sized car, it just goes to the end of the drive. Those aren't driveways, and I don't think that should have been allowed in the first place. Now it's done, and we're going to put a sidewalk on the east side of Lasher. Maybe, I don't know. The streets and houses in Stevenson, I've lived here for 35 years, are built haphazardly sometimes. And many years ago, we spoke about doing a survey of all the city's streets to know that they're in the correct spot and that and where the city right-of-ways are. I don't know if that has been accomplished. I don't remember it being accomplished, and I think it should be. And the second thing is First Street. That new sidewalk is kind of nice, but it is dangerous for cars. I've driven by it several times. I would say all of you should drive it and see what you think of it. I spoke to Carolyn about it, and frankly, you know, when you engineer something, perception is part of that engineering process. And if people perceive that your lane or our lane going eastbound is narrower than the westbound because of that sidewalk, I think somebody's run into it already. I'm not an engineer, but I'm a rational human being. And I think that sidewalk should have been narrowed as it approached that no sidewalk area. Again, perception in human beings is everything. And the perception is that your lane is narrower and you're going to hit it with your tire on the right side when you're going there. So, you know, when we're doing these things, yes, sidewalks are nice, but also, other people use that same road. And it would be nice to take that into account. And again, as the planning commission, I don't know who gave permission for those, for the Lasher Street development. But if we're going to give permission to people to develop, then room should be left for sidewalks for everybody. Not just certain developments or certain areas. It's only fair. And that, thank you.
Thanks, Mary. Any other public comments or? Anything that's not on the agenda? Not hearing anything. We'll move to the, going over the minutes. Everybody have a chance to look over the minutes?
Yes, sir. Have you, Tony?
What's that?
Did you get to read the minutes already?
Yes, I have.
I motion that we approve the minutes of the February 10th Planning Commission meeting.
Got a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All right, a second, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
right. Thank you. New business, rezoning recommendation. Item 4. Okay, Ben.
All right, we do have one applicant in attendance. You can feel free to join us at the table over here if you're comfortable there. And we'll allow the other applicant to talk. Before we get going, we do ask the planning commission, we go through an appearance of fairness process. So as when you're reviewing site-specific proposals like this, you are acting in a quasi-judicial capacity, you're acting like a judge. Judges need to be fair in our system and impartial in decision-making. And in the state of Washington, they ask us to demonstrate that ability by going through a series of disclosures. So we ask you whether you have any financial stake in the outcome of the proposal that's in front of you, whether you've had any ex parte communications with anybody about the proposal. Ex parte communications mean communication with somebody else. So outside of these chambers, if somebody's talked to you, we ask you to disclose that in the general content of that discussion. And then we ask you just a much more open-ended, if there's anything else about the project or its location that might impact your ability to be fair and impartial in the decision-making process. So with that set of 3 questions, I will just hand that off to you all one by one. Start with ex parte communications. Has anybody had any discussions with anybody about this?
No.
No.
So,
No, I've had none.
okay. Does anyone have a financial stake in the outcome of this proposal?
Nope, I do not.
No.
I have none.
Is there anything else about the proposal that could impact your ability?
Exactly. Do you think he's trying to cuddle with you, buddy?
No.
He's working after your pizza. Lose tail.
All right, with that out of the way, I will give a little staff presentation about what the proposal is, and we'll give the applicants the ability to respond to that or explain the project too. The opportunity then for the public to comment on it and you all to deliberate and make a recommendation to the city council. So with rezoning proposals, it is something that the state statutes require the planning commission to review and provide a recommendation on. The city's regulations have the city council holding the public hearing on this. So this is characterized as public involvement. It's not a formal public hearing testimony. Related to this, the city council holds that public hearing and receives that testimony along with your recommendation. So the rezoning request that you have is to rezone approximately 0.52 acres of property from R2 two-family zoning to R3 multifamily zoning. The differences there broadly are under two-family zoning, the maximum number of dwelling units that you can have on any property is 2, and under multifamily zoning, The maximum number is only limited by the lot size, and that's one dwelling unit is allowed per 2,000 square feet of lot area. And so with this half acre 0.52, that works out to a 11 unit maximum that could be allowed on this property if it were rezoned. Staff in review of this is recommending approval, or recommending you recommend approval of this rezone. It's a piece of property that is surrounded on 3 sides by R3 multifamily zoning already. It's the only property on the street that's zoned R2. Every other property is zoned R3. So there's really, it's hard to understand the rationale for why this is not zoned R3. And the proposal that you have aligns with your comprehensive plan that supports either of the zoning types. It doesn't limit you to one or the other. Either one can be approved, and so it's a city decision, judgment calls based on that. There really aren't criteria here. You're looking for things like harmony with the neighborhood, alignment with existing plans, but there's that alignment with the future land use plan is really the only thing that controls you in this case, or controls the city council in their decision making. So I think that's the end of the report for me.
Do you have pictures of it?
The
in the-
staff
it's in the
report has
pamphlet.
area photos, yeah. Vacant property currently.
All right, does the applicant want to say anything?
I think Ben really covered it all. We're just looking for the best use of the, you know, the piece of ground, and it is bordered by R3 on 3 sides. And once again, I'm not sure why they didn't run a clean line through there either, but irregardless, you know, we'd like to take a look at going to a higher density just to maximize it for the amount of people that we could actually house there. And if they, what is the apartment complex next door? The White Cat? No, that's down below.
Cascade Village.
Yeah, anyway, it just seems like that, you know, a higher density would be a good use for it. Get some more housing units, and we all know that there's nowhere to rent or buy up here. So.
Alrighty. You have any public comments?
Yes, thank you. I read the CPAW briefly, it's my first time seeing it. When was it in the paper?
No SEPA determination has been made on this yet.
Oh, okay, so there is still a comment period? Okay, I thought I saw 11/22/24 somewhere in here. There's just a couple things on quick glance. There are birds in the area, and is this that cleared off land that is behind the duplexes that exist? So where is this actually?
It's above that on Lasher to the north.
In the treed area?
It's across the street from where the logging is done. So right next to the apartments, there's just a half acre in that back corner, being the northwest corner.
Is that behind the new house up there?
It's just to the west of the apartments.
Okay.
If you kept driving up like you were gonna
You can
go up
see
the way
on the
Lasher was
picture.
supposed to go,
Yeah,
it would end up in the bottom of this.
Okay, yeah, where that old house was. So
Just
there are
to the
birds
north of that.
up there, and birds are not signed in here. We have a lot of songbirds in our neighborhood. We have hawks, we have all sorts of birds, so that should be included. And the question, approximately how many people would reside or work in the completed project? I mean, if you're going to build something, isn't there an occupancy thing? A certificate that has to be given to it, so don't we know how many people could live in those houses? Or a house that you're gonna build?
The project that's being reviewed here, the proposal that's being reviewed here is a non-project proposal, so it's the zoning designation.
Yeah,
And so this isn't about what might be constructed there, it's what could be constructed. And so the maximum under the lot size would be 11 units there.
mhm.
And that would then be the number of bedrooms or how many people occupy those units are decisions that are made later on and subject to a different review process.
So doesn't the SEPA apply to the entire project?
SEPA applies to this decision, the
Okay.
rezoning decision.
But we're just giving a recommendation. Correct.
Okay. All right, I think, just the, in the SEPA itself, thing about, list any birds and other animals that have been observed in or around the site. I do think that none is inappropriate because there are birds and hawks in that area. And we get a lot of migratory birds going across this area of the gorge and that. And on Rock Pond, even though this is a distance, they tend to come into our neighborhoods. So I know you listed deer, but we do get raccoons and other things through there. So I think that should have been included, especially the birds. They're pollinators, and I like to see pollinators around. I don't see a problem with rezoning, but the problem that I have with folks coming to you and asking for more housing because we don't have affordable housing, I suspect that these houses will not be affordable for people in our community. Brian has not done that in the past, and so is there going to be any restrictions, or not a restriction, but like, and if you're going to give him this, does he have to do that? Basically build 1 or 2 or 3 affordable houses. Affordability has to be based on the salaries of our people. And $400,000 or $500,000 homes are not going to be affordable. So, you know, to say we're going to put in more housing just because we don't have housing doesn't give you affordable housing in your community. Brian's going to want to, and Mike will be wanting to make money, and that's their right and all. However, I don't think we should be using the lack of housing here to make decisions because the lack of affordable housing, because it's not going to be affordable. I think we all know that. Unless it's a guarantee in the deeds for 100 years. Thank you.
Any other public comment?
To have applicant hoping to contribute. Are you able to mute or unmute, Brian?
How do I unmute?
You're unmuted. We got you.
Okay. All right. Sorry I couldn't be there tonight. I out of the coast on a job, but I just wanted to make a comment on what Mary just touched base on. With the only thing this is doing by rezoning it is giving the option to get bigger density, which be the option of building apartments in there. There's nothing more affordable in Skamania County than an apartment complex. To where I think this goes hand in hand with what you want to see out of the city. The city zoning, the city zoning talks about like minimum lot requirements, and with the dimensions of that entire half acre, we can't break that up into a bunch of different parcels. All this rezoning will do is give us the availability to put 2 4-plexes or 10 units on there potentially. So this is the definition of creating more housing, more affordable housing in downtown Stevenson. So I don't think Mary fully understands what rezoning will do here.
Thanks for that clarification.
All right.
So August, are you ready for a motion and some discussion?
Well, as long as we don't have any more public involvement. Do we have anybody else?
No other hands are raised.
Okay, all right, so we'll close the public meeting and open the discussion. Charles, you have thoughts?
Yeah, so sort of two things. One, it seems to me, given the housing need in Stevenson, that kind of our watchword ought to be any reasonable and responsible upzoning should, we should be inclined towards favoring it. And this one seems reasonable and responsible. Secondly, there's a principle in rezoning, which isn't in our code, but it sometimes is in city codes, that if there's a right that is enjoyed by others who are similarly situated, then, it's again a factor in favor of a decision like this. Hey, the property around this, much of the property around this site is already R3, so they're similarly situated. They enjoy the right, or in some cases have already developed fully to that right of apartment density. So based on those two factors of, is this reasonable and responsible, and is it similar to the property around it? It seems to me that we have every reason to recommend approval, and I'll make a motion to that effect unless others want to discuss before we have a motion on the floor.
Anybody else have any discussion? I would just say I agree with Charles, and that I find it a little bit disconcerting when someone starts to talk about, as Mary stated, affordable housing. That isn't the issue that we're here to decide. We're just here to decide whether the property rezoning follows the current trend that the city has, the fact that it's surrounded by similar property densities. That's more in keeping with what our decision's based on. Whether there's affordability or more housing involved has nothing to do with our decision. That's a matter for what the property owner wants to do with it. And so we have to just look at it from the context of, does this abide by the rules that we've set in place? Does it create any kind of problem with zoning, spot zoning issues, which this doesn't? So I agree with Charles that there is not any issues really here.
Yeah, I agree with Charles as well. I drove past the property, and it's if you're trying to think of a perfect time or application to rezone, this is contiguous to the apartment buildings that are right next to it. That wouldn't change the nature of that neighborhood at all.
Yeah.
100%, because I drove by it and thought the same thing.
I would just say that in the future, in the building permit process, there would be some concerns that I would have, but for right now, as far as zoning, I don't think those are valid at this time. So Charles has got a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 We'll send that off to city council as our recommendation.
Great. Yep, next steps, we will forward that recommendation to the city council. We will publish the TIFA threshold determination. That's got a 14-day comment period. And we have public hearing before the city council that has a 14-day notice period also. They have the option to do one touch or two touch review in that. We'll see what their option is for timelines on it, but
And those are contiguous.
yes.
Just on a side, I would say to remove any dialogue of affordable housing from the issue, because it's not part of the decision making for it being rezoned. it's a density issue, so. All right, old business. Public records request, what's this?
Just in the current staff structure that we have right now, and Ann asked if we're fully restaffed. We are not fully restaffed. And making things work without one staff member and on the basis of two temps. So wanted to provide some indication of what's going on as far as what the work is that needs to be done with that. So public records requests is something that had been handled by Liana, the former city administrator, and or Anders, the former deputy clerk treasurer. Now that they're both gone, that's something that I've been working with Tiffany on, and we've got a good set of SOPs to follow, standard operating procedures to follow when we get public records requests. An example of something that comes in is somebody will say, hey, I want all documents related to X topic. And so we review the physical files and any of the city's filing cabinets to see if they are related to that topic. We review all the emails that have been generated by the city system related to that topic. And then we have to go through each one of those to see if there's a responsive record in here. And if there is, whether that responsive record should be withheld. So when we say that we're dealing with public records requests, there's this like expectation that the public deserves the record, and they do deserve the record, but there's less clarity into what goes into that. So providing some of that clarity. In one recent one, the initial search for emails produced 17,000 emails. So for Tiffany, between when she's assisting planning and assisting public works and answering phone calls and doing other core parts of her job, she's going through 17,000 emails to determine whether this is a responsive record, and then if that needs to be withheld for any reason. So that's a lot. Going through all of the physical files that we have up here for the same purpose is a lot. So that's one example of some of the things that we have going on and we're trying to do at this time, and I think we're doing well with it. Similar example of other issues that we're getting through right now, even though we're down staff. We're doing a utility customer audit. We discovered that we didn't discover this. This was identified in around August of last year. And more aspects of it have materialized through the winter time. So the utility rates were changed in the middle of last year, and the way the rates were applied wasn't fully uniform across all customers. So we're going through all customers to see how it was done, whether it was done appropriately, and then identifying whether that resulted in any underbilling of utility customers or overbilling of utility customers. If anybody's overbilled, they're being issued a refund or a credit for that overbilling. If they were underbilled, we're collecting all of that information to provide it to city council for a decision on that before we just mail somebody a
March bill.
yeah.
A request for delayed payment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's also a lot, and we're getting that in, so it does delay things like delivery of your packet today, which I apologize for, and likewise to the applicants, apologize for the delays in that. There's just a lot that we're working through right now.
For public records request, is there a fee for that?
There is no fee for that, and even there are some constraints that the state puts on jurisdictions about what fees you can charge.
Right.
I'm not sure exactly where all that stands right now. The last time I knew anything about it, the state of Oregon allows for the staff time to review it. The state of Washington does not. So we can charge by the copy of what somebody does, but if then they
But there's
request
no
it
compensation for determining whether that copy
Right.
is something that is
Right.
pertinent or not. Yeah.
yeah, it's just a taxpayer function that we absorb and do as time allows. So
Well, we appreciate people doing double duty under these circumstances.
Triple
Yes.
duty.
And that really just underscores the last bullet point there. We're down staff, but we are small right now, but we are mighty right now. We're doing a lot.
Well done.
Proud of them.
We're kicking butt.
And your assistant needs an assistant.
All right, thought of the month, other than that, we need to hire some more staff.
Or just provide liquor.
Mm,
Come on, come on.
No, no. That doesn't, I don't think that's proven to improve efficiency.
Alas, it's a no.
All right,
Thought of the month, we dive into some designy things. So first one is the Vitruvian Triad. You might have heard of Vitruvius from Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, but Vitruvius lived 1,500 years before Da Vinci, and he articulated the architectural principles of the Romans at the end of the Roman Republic. So three concepts from him were firmitas, utilitas, and venustas. Durability, usability, and beauty in there. So a little primer on that in what makes good design, and then how that beauty part could be applied to just a downtown corridor. So there's a good set of visuals to say what you might look for in something. For you all, you break down that and then you translate it into design review components on the front end. It's not really something we have. We have the amount of building for the downtown area. It's how close you are to the sidewalk and how much of that building needs to be windows and doors, windows and or doors. Building height, signage, design requirements, but trying to set up a land use regulatory system that would have changed that corridor in the second link into something that commentator might have appreciated. Involves much more. It's much more in depth than anything that we have, or anything that I'm sure that you would end up proposing.
But what we have is typical for other cities our size, correct?
It
Yeah.
is, yeah.
I think both cities have recommendations for architectural adherence. It's very hard to create a strict guideline. It runs into a lot of issues. And then you have to have an architectural board that reviews it, and then it just creates more headache. So the route that most cities go by is recommended, and it's up to the property owner to kind of like follow through with that or not. And usually it can't really be a part of the building process overview, but it can be discussed, but it can't be part of the decision making. So, yeah, been there, done that.
Mhm.
One step up from that. I mean, I agree. It's a pretty big leap to have the regulatory process, but you know, someone like the Downtown Association could give awards for people that do an exemplary job of following the recommended ideas. You know, so there is an interim step between hoping that people will do the right thing and requiring them to do the right thing, which is rewarding them for doing the right thing, at least with some praise. And, you know, I think that might be something that we might want to encourage the Downtown Association to do over time. They do a lot of good things, but this might be one more if we start getting more development that might benefit from that.
That is a great
Great
idea,
idea.
Charles.
Yeah.
Carrots, everybody needs carrots.
Yeah, carrots work sometimes.
All right, any other thoughts? Comments? All
I
right.
have a question.
Yes, Mary.
When are you going to take up the affordable housing issue? Or is that on your work plan?
It's an ongoing discussion that we've had for years.
Well, yeah, I know. That's why I'm asking.
Well, I
The
mean,
hair's getting grayer.
Yeah, it tends to kind of like show up again, the topic, and there gets a little bit of interest and, you know, we have discussions about it, but until there's something to actually put some meat into it, there's not a lot, I mean, there's not really any active programs that the city can utilize to help you know, make it more favorable for people to have more affordable housing. And so it's really, that's all you can do is discuss it and hope that the developers take that into consideration. But right now, there's nothing that we can do to require it.
Yeah, it will be a substantial policy lift for us to do. And it'll involve alignment between the planning commission's work plan and the city council's work plan. I think with our staff right now, we're not in a place to take up any substantial policy discussions. But I hope that after we get restaffed and restructured, that's something that the planning commission and the city council can both embrace for to start working on fourth quarter of this year.
Yeah, and I'm on the Homeless Housing Council, and I would really urge you all to have Community Roots come and speak with you from Vancouver, Hector Hinojosa, and also Mid-Columbia Housing. Get their report on what's going on in the entire gorge area. People are suffering without affordable housing, and affordable housing needs policies. And I think the basic thing we should look at is what policies need to change in order to have affordable housing in your community. You know, the city council should be doing that too, because they're going to have to do the voting on things like this, on having deeds, have these 50-year or 100-year affordable housing in the deed as a, I don't know what you call it. I can't remember.
Deed restriction.
Thank you. Deed restriction, which is what they've done in some areas like Aspen and Yellowstone and all those. So, but yeah, and there's other groups that Gorge Housing Authority, or not Housing Authority, but the housing group. There were 40 groups of it that were supposed to be forming a Gorge group to talk about affordable housing. So maybe, yes, I know staffing is an issue, but you can at least talk about some of the policies that would have to change in order to facilitate affordable housing in our community. And to me, that does not mean denser housing. And that's the other discussion you're going to have with the community, because you all are talking about denser housing. Your community doesn't want it. People in the community talk about this, and they don't want denser housing. They live in a rural community because it's a rural community. So you're going to have to overcome that too. You can't just keep stuffing people into a community and hope it's going to turn out well. It's not. So you know, we have to start the discussions. We've had it for 30 years now. And, you know, it can go on for another 30 years. So I really would urge one group, either the council or the planning commission, to start having that discussion. Hector is a really good guy to have come talk to you, because he got money out of the state to build affordable housing. And that, and if he can get it, he can teach us how to. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Barry.
Well, this is a bigger discussion, and it's one I'm really interested in. Mary, I disagree with one thing you said, but actually you circled back and said it. You said it, affordable housing is policy. No, it's not. It's money, which is what you said at the end. And the way to get affordable housing is to have somebody subsidize it. And who that somebody might be, could be the state, could be a nonprofit corporation, a community development corporation, could, at one time, it might have been the federal government, but I don't think there's much hope for that right now. So it's money. That's how you get affordable housing, is money. you know, we can talk more about whose money and when and how Stevenson might avail itself of. What the planning commission and the city council can do is set the table by having a zoning code and development regulations that make sense. And maybe the decision tonight is one more little step in that direction. We can set the table, create the conditions under which someone could build affordable housing. But the only place you can get affordable housing by policy is in a red hot market like Aspen, where you can require developers to build affordable housing in exchange for building the expensive stuff. And that's not Stevenson. And that's not going to be Stevenson anytime soon. And I'm pretty sure it's not the Stevenson that you want to live in. So it's a money issue. It's a question that does deserve attention. I'm not saying you're wrong that the issue needs to be attended to. You're right that the issue matters, but the way to get there is to find out how and by what mechanism the affordable increment can be subsidized, because the market, no matter what we do in zoning, is not going to produce affordable housing on its own, in my opinion. So that's my, I'll end of speech. But I mean, it is a very important topic, Mary, and I respect the fact that you keep bringing it up because it does need to be attended to. But we've got to be clear-eyed about this, and we can't make people build affordable housing. We can't even change the zoning code in a way that would be enough of an incentive, in my opinion, for them to build affordable housing. Some third party has to subsidize it. I'll shut up now, but that's my little speech.
Very good. I think that's a lot of good points you had. I would say that also, the multiple discussions that we've had, both in city council and the planning committee and in the community, if we look at the discussion we had 3 years ago versus now, values have increased. So any discussion that we had about what that price point was 3 years ago is totally out of, it's out of the water. So I think, refreshing our data on what is affordable for this community, because it's not going to be the same as Benjamin, it's not going to be the same as Hood River, it's not going to be the same as Vancouver. So we have to kind of collect that data again and look at what the median income is and what is truly affordable in the sense of affordable housing. And is that something that's even achievable? Then you can start to, yes, I absolutely agree. You have to come up with something that subsidizes that money, because when it comes down to it, it's all about, the price of building a house is what it is. And if you're going to make it affordable by subsidizing it, is the only way to lower that initial cost. And, whether that is bared on the developer and like Charles said, in a place where you have a lot of activity, you can kind of put a lot of sugar on the table and say, hey, if you build 10% of your houses and put a deed restriction on that they're affordable, we'll let you build your other 90% at something else. And we don't have that situation here. We don't have the ability to sprinkle sugar out. So
That's right.
That's
Good analogy.
that's kind of where we're at. But yes, I think the discussion needs to continue, but it needs to be freshened back up again with
There
new
are
data.
other options. Did you see River Talk this week? Clark County is offering first-time home buyers help with their with that first buy-in to a home. They've got well, it's a small amount, only $1 million, but it will help some first-time buyers get into the market and that. And you as the planning commission, just yesterday, there were news reports about 3D printed houses, which can be put up within days instead of timber or lumber and that. So, Charles is correct that money is always the bottom line, but you have to have hope too, really. People are suffering. They don't have homes, and we hear about it every month. And it goes month to month to month, and unless you start to do something, take that first initial step, we're never going to solve this problem, or at least take a chunk out of it. We have young people in the community who will have no place to live. So if you want a old community with people like me in it, don't have affordable housing for your young people. But that's the other thing. If you want to repopulate your area, you're gonna have to have affordable housing for the people and for the folks that do the work. The restaurants, the A&J's, and other stores. Those folks who don't make a living wage.
Mary, about that, I think we all have radical agreement. It's just a question of how we get there from here.
Yes.
All right. Any other thoughts, discussions, concerns? All right. I have a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Second of all.
All right, we are adjourned.
Thank you all. Good to see you. To see
Thank
me
you,
back
sir.
in person in a couple more months, but I'll be here this way next month again.
All right.
Disembodied voice and face on the screen is what you'll have to put up with for now.
Are you in South Carolina?
No, I'm in the Bahamas.
Oh, okay.
Oh, you poor thing.
I know. I don't want too much sympathy for that. So, you know,
Are you there with your boat?
Yeah.
Oh, nice.
yeah, our
Well-
kids and grandkids come down and join us here for a few weeks. So this is our new pilgrimage and we like it very much.
That's great. Have fun.
It's new friend.
Thank you.
Don't
Thank you.
get too tan.
I'll wear my sunblock.
If you go to the restore.
All right.
Thank you, August.
Yeah,
You guys.
Thanks, Bob.
store in River or the Dalles.